Today, not only do we have a thriving domestic market, but our exports are increasingly forcing their way onto the most discerning dinner tables around the world. So much so that an Australian expo in 2 weeks will unveil a 30-year plan to boost wine to the top of the list of all our agricultural exports. Move over wool, wheat and beef. Business correspondent Alan Kohler.
In a corner of the Hunter Valley, one of the icons of the Australian wine industry, Len Evans, is besieged at his Rothbury Estate vineyards. Brewing giant Foster's has launched a takeover bid for Rothbury and is about to succeed.
I would wish they would leave us alone to finish the job that I set out to do 26 years ago, which is a 30-year job. I'm resisting it, hoping that they'd go away and showing them that they should go away.
Len Evans' pursuer is Ray King, head of Foster's new wine subsidiary, Mildara Blass, which Foster's took over 4 months ago. And his new owners don't want him to go away, as Len Evans would like.
Well, they would certainly like us to be bigger than we are today, and their ambitions are very significant.
1,000 kilometres away in the Yarra Valley near Melbourne, another wine industry leader is having a similar experience. Writer and lawyer James Halliday established Coldstream Hills Vineyard and Winery 10 years ago and now finds himself under attack from Australia's other wine giant, Southcorp Wines.
Australia needs big companies at the top to have the volume of scale, but it's equally important to keep the individuality, the personalities, what you could call, if you like, the sex appeal of the industry, the boutiques, the Petalumas, the Henschkes of this world.
The head of Southcorp Wines is Bruce Kemp, who is no stranger to takeovers.
The major acquisition of Southcorp was Penfolds and Lindeman's way back in 1989, but it's not so much in the domestic context, it's more of reaching a size in the international market, so you have got the size and scale and costs to project yourself outside of Australia.
Well, the corporate danger is always a danger, isn't it? I mean, the bigger they get, sometimes the more ruthless they get, the more arrogant they get, the more dictatorial they become. There's also another danger that the corporate man then becomes the face of Australian wine.
But these days, scale is what the industry is all about. In 2 weeks, the Australian wine industry will put on its biggest ever show, the week-long Wine Australia at Sydney's Darling Harbour. During the exhibition, the Wine Federation will release long-range industry plans. As well as running Rothbury, Len Evans is chairman of the Wine Foundation.
The first proposition, if you like, is that by 2010, we'll have 5% of the world's wine exports. We have approaching 2% now. So this is not a very big demand in 15 years, but it does mean that we have to know what vineyard is needed, what varieties are needed, where they're needed, and at what price levels they're needed. Now, the 30-year plan is a much more pie-in-the-sky thing altogether. What's happening there is we're saying that Australia has the potential, because of the nature of its style of its wine, the technology, the brains, the entrepreneurship, the lack of tradition, or therefore the non-blinkered attitude. And basically we have the land, and because we have the land, we could become one of the major 4 or 5 wine nations of the world.
So, James, is there a story associated with these Broken Woods?
Well, yes, that was my first winery. Started that in 1970.
James Halliday believes these targets are achievable, but that the biggest challenge will be getting capital, and that means big companies and more takeovers. He has decidedly mixed feelings about that.
Where you've had either beer barons, spirit barons or food groups come in thinking that they're going to be able to teach the wine industry how to manage itself far better, make far more margin, increase sales, they've all gone away licking their wounds. And I think that while, of course, new successions of management have frontal lobotomies and they don't seem to learn the lessons of the past, I think they are written so large that at least there will be some break on the aggregation forces that you might otherwise see.
I think you're talking about billions of dollars, probably $2 to $3 billion in vineyard developments, winery capacity, and more importantly, extra working capital in both stocks and debtors.
The question now being posed is whether big money and big companies means lower quality wine.
Obviously, when margin becomes all important, corners can be cut. The day that Australia loses its wine integrity, and the integrity that we've really worked very hard to maintain overseas, then is the day when I think other countries will swamp us.
The small companies at the super premium end of the market are only going to contribute 2% of the total market. So by that yardstick, their contribution is tiny. But it's terribly, terribly important as a flag. They are literally the flag bearers. They are the symbols, if you like, of quality. It's those wines that get written about in the international wine magazines. It's those wines which come up top in international wine competitions.
Len Evans and James Halliday will no doubt stay in the wine industry, but they might have to choose between corporate life and the back seat.
Alan Kohler with that report, which ends the program for the night and the week. Have a good weekend, and we'll be back same time Monday. Until then, good night.